Hi, this is Kasian, and it's time for a weekly conference call at VectorspaceAI. We'll start with what's happening around the world. There are more virus variants on the horizon, and there are a growing number of organizations and corporations, academic institutions, both public and private, that are mandating vaccinations globally. BTC is trading at 40K, and ETH is trading between 27 and 2800 after a small rise, and the Dow is at 34.9. On the industry side, CNBC is reporting that JP Morgan, led by a Bitcoin skeptic, Jamie Dimon, quietly unveils access to a half a dozen crypto funds. And that's the headline on that. The NSF, the National Science Foundation, is expanding partnerships nationwide across 40 states related to a national AI research institute. So that will span 40 states in the United States and kicks off immediately. On July 29th, 2021, it's reported that the U.S. National Science Foundation announced the establishment of 11 new NSF, National Artificial Intelligence Research Institutes, building on the first round of 7 institutes funded in 2020. The combined investment of $220 million expands the reach of these institutions, or these institutes, to include a total of 40 states and the District of Columbia. And as we know, Canada is a hub for AI. Baidu's Knowledge Enhanced ERNIE, that's ERNIE 3.0. And as we know, ERNIE is related to Google's BERT. These are tip-of-the-spear approaches in natural language generation. And Baidu has its own variant. And it's called ERNIE 3.0. So pre-training framework, this pre-training framework that Baidu developed delivers SOTA NLP results, state-of-the-art NLP results, surpassing human performance on the superglue benchmark. A research team from Baidu proposes ERNIE 3.0, a unified framework for pre-training large-scale, knowledge-enhanced language models that can easily be targeted for both natural language understanding and generation tasks with zero-shot learning. Moving along, still under industry news, DeepMind open sources the protein structure dataset generated by AlphaFold 2. And you can look that up. That was reported in VentureBeat. Under themes and events, we don't have much happening with the exception of meme stocks, which we rarely talk about. But in this case, after the Robinhood IPO, meme stocks, there's a lot of confusion around meme stocks. Some are saying Robinhood is a meme stock. It's been reported. And that is incorrect when you look at what an actual meme is. We won't get into that now, but meme stocks would be a theme, a running theme, that will probably run out at some point, but nevertheless, it is a current trending theme, and we pay attention to themes, global themes. mRNA, messenger RNA, is back in the news with variants surging, virus variants surging, results in more mRNA work related to vaccinations. And mRNA work applied to other solutions or therapies in life sciences. On the corp side, everything is in process. On the engineering, product, QA, and ops side, well, first off, back to corp for a quick second. We are continuing to look for office space sandwiched in between UC Berkeley and Berkeley Lab. We'll let everybody know how that's going. We've locked down on a few, but we still might want to keep looking. So we'll keep everybody updated. Under engineering, product, QA, and ops, we are engaging in an analysis on extending our data provenance, lineage, governance, and security protocol. And what that means is fitting it more closely to space biosciences. At some point, we will develop our own chain. We've talked about this in the past. If we have to. If we can't do enough, with Python scripts as wrappers around Solidity on the Ethereum backbone, then we'll do something else. But we certainly will need dedicated data provenance, lineage, governance, and security solutions for each industry, as one data provenance, lineage, governance, and security solution does not cover all cases in every industry. We are continuing to work on the backtester, and the backtester connects to just about everything that we do on the financial market side. The backtester is actually used to generate thematic baskets, the historical performance of thematic baskets, in addition to testing data sets for alpha. We are also continuing with our Azure build-out, and that would simply mean architecting scalable pipelines so that we are able to move into Azure, so to speak, fully. And we are under engineering, product QA and ops, and under engineering we have visualization and extended reality, or our extended reality experience. Eventually, the visualization, design, and extended reality or augmented reality group will be their own group, but for now they are under engineering as we scale. And connected to visualization, as mentioned last week, we do have that new visualization engineering hire, and XR, extended reality, our extended reality group, which uses the Unity gaming engine, is going to be developing extended graphics initially. These are just storyboards in terms of what we want to do with pathways, DNA repair pathways, found at reactome.org. This is where we're going to start with our extended reality and initial visualization efforts. If you go to reactome.org, you can take a look at what we're talking about here. This does relate to space biosciences and all of life sciences. Reactome, that's spelled REACTOME.org, is going to be one of our partners. It's been one of our collaborators in the past. It's actually one of the best services out there for describing pathways visually. We're going to improve on this. What you'll see there are two-dimensional visualizations. We're going to bring those to three-dimensional, and then of course multi-dimensional with extended reality, so that researchers can have a better view into pathways. Pathways are extremely complex. A pathway describes interactions between similar genes and proteins and biochemicals. And in that pathway, there can be a lot of complexity, as you've got sometimes hundreds of genes and proteins interacting with other enzymes, interacting with biochemicals, and so forth. So visualizing that can be difficult. When you zoom in on one portion, you get lost. You don't know where you are. When you zoom out, there's too much information. This is a common problem related to noise and visualizations that can be solved with gaming engines. So we look forward to advancing that and working with our collaborators at University College of London and at Imperial College of London. And we are continuing to work on outside of visualization. This actually connects to some of visualization, design, and extended reality. We're going to be continuing to advancing our designs and branding for space biosciences, and part of that includes developing the Space Biosciences Industry Report so that we can get everyone familiar with the total addressable market, but more importantly, the integral nature of space biosciences, the necessity of it. Because as we've been talking about with some of our collaborators, we are not establishing a moon base. We are not going to Mars without understanding how to protect the human body. When we look at the Space Biosciences Industry Report, we're going to break down not just space biosciences, but material science as well, in addition to nanotechnology, which also relates to material science, and biology when you consider nanomedicines, biodegradable polymers, and so forth. When you look at materials in terms of protecting from heavy ion particles in space, or galactic cosmic rays. That is also part of the space industry. And the space industry, of course, includes towing in high-value asteroids and so forth. But we'll break down everything that we possibly can by aggregating from additional reports and, of course, hiring experts. And we'll have on display a nice space industry economic report describing space biosciences and the other verticals within the entire space industry. Moving on to customers, partners, and collaborators. On the financial market side, we've been talking with Efficient Frontier. We had a meeting with them, very productive meeting. We're going to go ahead and move forward with Efficient Frontier. You can look them up to find out who they are. We are also looking at how our trial customers will move to paying customers. And one of the vetting processes that we have in place is making sure that we have enough available engineering resources to onboard any customizations. So considering customizations and fastest path to revenue, to consequential revenue, those are things that we need to factor when moving trial customers to the paying customer tiers, paid customer tiers. In terms of Morningstar, S&P Global, FactSet, and others, everything is moving right along quite nicely and in progress. We'll have more updates next week. And we also have Bloomberg on deck, and this has been through our sales and marketing team, in particular Ted Storali and his team. They've been working hard on getting us a few booths and panels on trade shows as well. But we'll talk about that in just a bit. Meanwhile, Ted's been working with Bloomberg, and Bloomberg, this is with Bloomberg's alternative data, a former alternative data contact there. We do have other contacts at Bloomberg that we've talked about in the past, and we've been working with Bloomberg, but we did put them on hold just to make sure that we did have available engineering resources to pay attention to quickest path to revenue. Now we are still under customers, partners, and collaborators, and under the Space Biosciences side, we have not talked about GNC, or General Nutrition Centers, in a while. And we are going to reach out to them, reopen our dialogue with them when we have available engineering resources. And GNC, of course, connects to our nutrigenomics efforts, which connect to repairing DNA, human DNA, after damage. And of course, anything related to nutrition and the immune system, as these things degrade in microgravity. We are also working with Algorithmia, and over the years in our talks with scientific labs, one of the issues has been the amount of time that scientists have to spend reading papers, and creating summaries for these is something that we've done in the past, so we're going to initiate this again. We've talked about summarization and the demo related to Morningstar, which we will go ahead and queue that up, likely for next week, and S&P Global. We're talking about the summarization demo here. And the summarization demo also applies to any group, any industry that needs documents or news or anything summarized. So our summarization module, as mentioned in the past, has been hosted by Algorithmia, and Algorithmia was bought by DataRobot, and DataRobot is IPOing, I think, to the tune of $6 billion or greater. I think it was actually greater. But when you look at DataRobot, who have just bought Algorithmia, you'll see Algorithmia is a much smaller company, but Kenny and Diego Oppenheimer there, who's the CEO and founder, we've been working with them for a few years, and they'll basically be working inside DataRobot. So we'll be working on getting our technology integrated within their group inside DataRobot. It's early days for that, so they're quite busy over there after any acquisition or any M&A event. It's very busy for the internal teams, obviously months before and months afterwards. And under the collaborators section, we are still under customers, partners, and collaborators. So under the collaborators section, we've got University College of London arranging for more space biosciences collaborations. We've also got the Imperial College of London, who we had a chance to talk with today. We'll be initiating a collaboration with them related to relationship networks. And those relationship networks will, of course, be graph networks visualized based on language models which extract patterns and detect hidden relationships in bodies of scientific literature related to the cell membrane, which is some of the research that they are working on there. Cell membranes related to the mitochondria specifically. And then, of course, they're doing research on aging, which, of course, connects to the mitochondria. And, of course, that connects to space biosciences. And they are interested in collaborating on the space biosciences side. In addition to the materials side and radiation, materials that protect against radiation. So we had a lot to talk about with them, and we'll be advancing that collaboration with them and their lab there, a few of their labs, including the data science lab, as they suggested. Our collaborations, of course, will be based on datasets that are used to extract or detect hidden relationships between proteins related to the cell membrane, in particular the membrane of the mitochondria. So the next step with Imperial College of London is for them to send us a list of selected published research, and we requested that they send us some of the most cutting-edge research that they're doing so that we can understand where we can help to advance that research. And next, we've got CERN as a collaborator, and where things have boiled down to with CERN has been where they've boiled down to us before with molecular biologists, and that is having someone from our team shadow our CERN researchers almost over their shoulder and understand precisely how they're taking particles and the measurements of particles, but in particular the attributes of those particles. And our job is to mimic their process of research, which would include understanding those particles and their relationships to other particles in scientific literature bodies related to particle physics. So we're going to be mimicking that process of making connections between particles. This is what we did with genes, human genes and proteins related to life sciences while we were at Berkeley Lab. So this is not something new for us, but this is the kind of the heart of what we do. In silico, we get software to mimic what a researcher does and how a researcher makes new connections or generates a new hypothesis or even a novel discovery. Mimicking that process is very important because when you mimic something in software, of course, you can automate it and speed it up. And on the QA side, we are now going to be talking about QA a bit more as we roll things out for our collaborators, and we're working on test plans. We've been working on test plans for quite a while, but test plans do change as your software changes. Next, we'll move on to corporate strategy, corporate development, business development, sales, and marketing. And that's headed up by Ted Stirali and his group. And we are going to be traveling to Chicago, where they have set up trading shows. In particular, with the trading show, that's what it's called, we'll engage in some booth and panel preparation, including demo preparation. So we're working on a new demo that we can display on our panel and at our booth in Chicago at the trading show. So it'll be a great showcase of what we can do on the financial market side. And of course, a great forum to be able to tell our story and how we're executing on our story. Next, we'll move on to exchanges. And as usual, we are being approached by additional exchanges. We are on a regular basis being approached by exchanges. We do have a vetting process for exchanges. We make sure that they engage in no wash trading or minimal wash trading if they can help it. We do understand that bots are used by just about everybody these days. But in particular, you've got groups that are using bots that are not part of exchanges, but they use bots on exchanges to go ahead and fake volume. That's not something we want to be involved with or be associated to or be tainted by. So we ask any exchange if they engage in wash trading and how much, or if they allow it. And we also ask for costs or fees related. The worst, of course, is to deal with any exchanges, cryptocurrency exchanges, that are not regulated and, of course, engaged in wash trading, synthetic volume generation, and want to charge you millions of dollars to list. So that's a scam. We don't deal with that. We are targeting NYSE, NASDAQ, Coinbase, and Kraken. Not necessarily in that order, might be in the reverse order, but nevertheless, those are the 4 exchanges that we're targeting. One of the reasons is we are moving to the U.S., and we follow the spirit of U.S. regulation, SEC regulation, and securities law. On the IR, PR, and Marcom side, everything is in process there. We can look forward to some nice PRs soon here. On questions from the trader base. Question 1. What impact will the move of HQ to the U.S. have on, number 1, the potential strategic investors, and number 2, hedge funds and clients? Well, positive and positive. For potential strategic investors, it's a boon for them to be able to work closer with a U.S. regulated company, U.S. domiciled company. For strategic investors, it's nice to know that any investment they have is capable of procuring government contracts in space biosciences or in all of life sciences when trillions have been dedicated or earmarked for all of life sciences due to the pandemic. That is attractive. And then, of course, hedge funds and other clients. That's nothing but a positive. So it's a win-win. Question 2, are tokens hashed automatically and paired to specific data sets? And are there any general guidelines for the structure and process of what the best practice is to lease one's thematic baskets? Alright, so those are 2 different topics. Are token hashes automatically paired to specific data sets? The answer is yes. And are there any general guidelines for leasing out your thematic baskets? We have no guidelines yet, so currently we're working on guidelines. We'll release those soon. And we'll also release them through the Thematic Baskets channel initially. Question 3, this coin has been around since 2019, so why the lack of exchange listings? Well, a few different reasons. How many exchanges wash trade? In the early days, how many exchanges used to wash trade? Far more than they did today. How many scam exchanges are out there? Lots. How many unregulated exchanges are out there? Tons. How many exchanges out there want to charge an arm and a leg to list? Tons. And then what you can do is look up second market. Look up Barry Silbert. Barry Silbert was the founder of GBTC, who most of you should be familiar with. Look up Facebook trading on second market, whose founder was Barry Silbert, the founder of GBTC. This is going to be a very interesting exercise for anybody that wants to know why we've chosen not to list on a broad exchange yet. Also understand the difference between a pre-IPO and a post-IPO. Understand the difference between a company being groomed to list on a larger exchange. So we will get there when the time is right. Question 4. If VXV increases significantly in price or volatility, how will that impact the intended utility, if at all? One other thing about exchanges that we've learned over the years is that exchanges that would like to ask for some of your tokens, block your tokens, they'll also put sell pressure. You don't want that. So anyway, question 4, if VXV increases significantly in price or volatility, how will that impact the intended utility, if at all? Well, market demand for datasets combined with demand for VXV will be used to adjust pricing. Question 5, what's the most interesting... No, I'm going to skip that question. Somehow that snuck in from last week. That's why I skipped it here. Okay. We'll move on to the next question. Question 6. I understand that clients need to buy VXV in order to access datasets. Is the pricing based on USD or VXV? If it's VXV, wouldn't that be too volatile? And pricing matrices would need to be constantly updated? Alright, so the first part of this question is, can people pay based on USD or VXV? The answer is yes. And will pricing matrices need to be constantly updated? Yes. That's why we have an algorithm to do that. Question 7, regarding the buybacks mentioned in the FAQ, will there be any % of those burned to decrease supply? Do you see Amazon, Tesla, Google, Apple burning their stock? That's the answer. Burning tokens to decrease supply is a running scam among crypto companies. These are crypto companies that had no clue about what it takes to build a decent cap table. They decided to issue too many tokens. What was the answer to them issuing too many tokens? Burn tokens. That's not how you run a company. That's not how you develop a trading vehicle. That's not how you induce confidence in the public. If you have issued too many tokens, you better have a really good product and a broad total addressable market. If you issue a reasonably sized circulating supply, you won't have that problem of having to think about burning tokens. If you issue a reasonable token supply and you have developed products that are in the hands of customers, you don't have to worry about burning tokens. We don't burn value. Question 8. How does VectorSpaceAI plan to scale in the future? Does a single API access rule them all, work for all clients, or for each client? Or will each client need to be onboarded after significant engineering prep? Well, yes, we exist to scale. That's why we're here, is to scale. We're not here to not scale. This is new territory, though, for us all. And no one has done what we have done before. And that is providing data sets that are correlation matrix data sets based on language models that provide predictions to AI and ML pipelines, or signal or alpha, along with visualizing the relationship networks. So in this new territory, we understand one thing, that every customer initially will have different requirements, different customizations. And that would also mean that every customer will have their own customized level of tiered service, along with specifying updates, parameters, data sources, row types, column types, context types, and any other proprietary data sources or parameters that they'd like to add. In the future, we of course will streamline, automate, and reduce steps. Next, we'll move on to our strategy section. And I have a note here that we'd like to mention that the 10 funds that were pulled from new data, we have requested that each of them hold VXV in order to access datasets. We made that a requirement, a hard requirement. And that may have inhibited some onboarding. But what we do understand is that they're going to have to use datasets from VectorSpaceAI if they want to gain an edge over their competitors, or their competitors will simply use them. We wanted to mention that related to the progress with these 10 funds. We'd also like to mention that we're not just building a company, we're building out an entire industry. And this is kind of usually the way that we work, an entire industry that has not existed before or has not matured before. This is the space biosciences industry and all the opportunity for all humankind associated to it. And finally, and I quote, "This September, we're all going to space," unquote. This is from Netflix. Netflix will co-produce a documentary about SpaceX's Inspiration 4 mission. That's in September. It's titled Countdown Inspiration 4 Mission to Space. Netflix will stream a documentary which will follow the story of the world's first private all-civilian space orbit. The group will board a SpaceX capsule next month and spend 3 days orbiting the Earth, becoming Netflix's first documentary to cover an event in near real time. So we'll look forward to that, of course, and we'll look forward to them mentioning everything that it takes in terms of space biosciences. That concludes our call for this week. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to join us online. Thank you.